Welcome to the Construction Big Breakfast, where we give you a hearty serving of insider tips and business strategies to help fuel your day so you can thrive in the construction industry. Now, here's your host, Tip Top Tim Fitch.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Construction Big Breakfast. And today I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues, Sree Vinayak, Sree Mercades, better known as Vinayak, Daryl Coughlan.
Hello.
And today's special guest, Jamie Siggers.
Hi.
So welcome everyone, and let's have a good one. So for those that this is their first episode of the Construction Big Breakfast, there's a ritual that we all go through. So I'm going to start today with Vinayak. And Vinayak, come on, what did you have for breakfast?
I have my usual porridge with nuts and berries. It's my staple weekday breakfast. No change. Okay,
you'll be running out of steam in about an hour because we're recording this at 10 o'clock in the morning. I gave up porridge years ago. It doesn't keep me going till lunchtime. Come on, Daryl, what did you have?
I had toast this morning and I treated myself to a nice coffee. I don't often do that during the week. I don't often get time while I'm looking after my little boy getting his breakfast as well, but I've managed to squeeze it in this morning, so there we go.
And Jamie, welcome. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had my usual as well. My usual is a berry smoothie. So it's got berries, yogurt, oats. So it's all good stuff.
Good stuff, quick to prepare.
Yeah.
Well, I had 2 artisanal eggs, soft boiled with soldiers, which are a bit like Vinayak. That's my standard one during the week. I don't normally go anything more sophisticated than that. Anyway, welcome. And for those that don't know, Jamie, you're a partner in Campbell Reith.
Yeah.
Do you just want to give us a bit of a flavour of what you're up to at the moment and what Campbell Reith's up to?
Yeah, so we're civil structural consulting engineers. We do geotechnical engineering, geoenvironmental consulting, some EIA environmental consulting as well. And at the moment, things are busy. I run the Bristol office and we are really busy at the moment, absolutely snowed under. We're looking to recruit, in fact, hopefully bringing in an apprentice in the next week. And yeah, lots of stuff going on, a lot of housing, so a lot of residential developments, getting planning, helping out with sort of transportation and drainage and civils and flood risk type stuff, and then taking them through planning and then onto construction. So it's the construction side, I think, at the moment that is a little bit slow for us. We've got a little bit of a pause on stuff actually getting onto site, but otherwise, yeah, pretty busy in our office, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good news story there.
Yeah.
And of course, like we all had to, it's been a time when we've had to adapt to the restrictions imposed by the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I know how we've done it, but how's Campbell Reith adapted?
Well, I mean, we were really well set up in the first place. So we'd been using virtual machine software for ages. So I've had a virtual machine since I've been with Campbell Reith for about 5 years. So I was used to working from home a day or 2 a week, every now and then. And so our software and all the stuff back in the office and in our various offices was set up to enable us to work from home. When we started to see that the sort of lockdown might happen, we did invest a bit more in updating our service to cope with the load, but then that was it, and we were pretty much ready. So when lockdown came, everyone was at home, everyone was working straight away, there was no delay, so it was all very, very well set up. That's the sort of IT backbone to it, I suppose. What we weren't ready for was all working in isolation. Yeah. And the speed of getting up to date on Zoom and Teams and things like that, and trying to work out how we maintain contact and on a daily basis, I think has been the real challenge for us. in terms of getting people working and doing the work, no problem whatsoever. It's the daily sort of chats, the daily keeping an eye on people and checking stuff, and just people understanding what's going on. That's what's really struggled. That's what we've struggled with, but it's taken a while. But I think we've got there with the sort of systems and things that we put in place.
That's interesting. I mean, in our own, I'll tell you how we at least did something to try and keep the cohesion in the team. Is that every day, I think almost without exception, except when we have a team meeting, we have what we call the IVB, which is the Invennt virtual breakfast, which is at 8 o'clock every day, and just about everyone turns up, don't they? And we just shoot the breeze. Yeah.
Well, we didn't do a daily thing, but we very quickly in our Bristol office, at least, we set up a Friday sort of coffee time call for an hour, or 45 minutes, or whatever it is that Zoom allows you for free. And yeah, so that was the entire Bristol team, and it started off, everyone was there the first couple of, and people then sort of decided whether to join or not sort of after the first couple of weeks. But that was a really good way of us all just being in touch. But outside of that, each of our teams had at least one call a week with the team, discuss resourcing, discuss projects that's going up, if anyone needed any help and things. So every Monday, each of our teams had that call, and then during the week, using either sort of face-to-face sort of Zoom calls like this, or Teams calls like this, or using the sort of chat function, we're always keeping in touch with people.
Jamie, that's a lot on kind of the internal effects and some of the changes that you've made in terms of keeping in touch with people internally. What's been the effect with maintaining relationships and collaborating with those outside of Campbell Reef? How have you managed that?
It's been interesting. I mean, where we've got projects on the go, again, they very quickly reverted to meeting online, and there didn't seem to be any effect on that, really. I mean, a lot of the work that we do is very collaborative. It has to be, and that didn't stop. The collaboration stuff isn't just about going to a meeting and meeting someone. It's day-to-day sharing model files, sending over sketches even, and that didn't stop. We still had the ability to do that. Each of the team members still had their sort of number twos, and they're going across to the organisations, the architects, and so on. So that didn't stop. No, I don't think that changed at all, really. It was just the meetings, and the meetings being different, to being sat at home and sat on your screen and having your kids running around in the background, sort of thing. But people forgave that because everyone's in the same sort of situation. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've certainly had my little boy run in from time to time, and have to try and kind of shoo him out, or he ends up just joining the meeting, which gives a little bit of light relief for everyone. But
yeah, and it I think in a great way as well. It makes people real. So when you're in a meeting, you're just talking business. But if your family life kind of comes into it, it's like the chats before and after meetings, where you just what do you do this weekend or whatever, and it makes you real, and it makes you sort of
it humanises people, doesn't it?
Yeah, it humanises people. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's been good. And I like the new phrases that have come into the lexicon, like "you're on mute." I don't think I've had one meeting where someone hasn't said "you're on mute."
Yeah, there are these new things to trip us up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's incredible that before March, I'd not heard of Zoom. I don't know if any of you guys had heard of Zoom, but I'd not heard of Zoom. We'd had Teams, Skype, but Teams mostly. No one had heard of Zoom, and now it's a phrase, isn't it? It's like, what are you doing? I'm Zooming someone. It's the same as the way that Hoover's become the term for a vacuum cleaner, and it's Zoom. I'm Zooming. If I had the foresight to buy shares in Zoom.
I'm a slow adopter of technology. Not like a total laggard. I'm never at the forefront. But of course, the day after the lockdown was announced, within 10 minutes, you're as good as the next person, aren't you? Because you've got no choice.
Yeah.
You have no choice but to adopt it. And of course, that's what's happened, isn't it? It's accelerated this shift to this kind of a meeting.
Yeah. And I think that's fine. We talk a lot about efficiency and productivity and things like that. And yes, working from home, maybe the efficiency drops a little bit because you've got kids in the background, or you've got distractions, getting up, make a cup of tea or whatever, and it's a different way of working. But I think the difference is that the productivity I would suggest is increased because we're not traveling to meetings. You're not spending an hour on the underground or trains or whatever to get to a meeting, and then half an hour at a meeting where it gets dragged out, and then you're an hour back again. You're 5 seconds setting up a call. No one particularly likes it, so you try and get it over and done with as quickly as possible, and then you're back to work again, and you don't lose that time. And I think certainly sort of managerial level, where half your job at least is going to meetings, it makes a huge difference about the amount of work that you can actually get done.
Yeah.
I think it has been an improvement in that sense, but at the same time, you do miss that kind of face-to-face human contact, as it were.
And taking forward from what Tim was saying, it's not so much that we chose to do it. We had no other choice. And being from construction industry, being one of the slow adopters in itself, we've proven now that it can be done. And everyone is doing it because you had no other choice. So
yeah, and I think it's going forward. It's going to make a big difference. I've come up through a number of organisations that have been certainly national, but global and things like that. And through pretty much every organisation, the sort of inter-office sharing of workload, etc., has always been a struggle to convince people to do. So you're either recruiting or letting people go because your workload peaks and troughs. But I think this has proven that remote working and working with someone in a different office has no difference. People can do it. So why can't you? So, if you've got a peak in workload, you ask your colleague in London to give you a hand, or you ask your colleague in Manchester or whoever it is to give you a hand. Whereas in the past, there was a lot of protectionism about the workload. Oh, it's got to be done in our office because I can't sit next to them and see what they're doing and things like that. And now it's kind of like, well, you've just been doing it for 3 months, and there's no difference to what your output or whatever. So that's not a reason. Share workload, share that around the business, and that's what we are seeing a lot more of. I mean, I don't think the construction industry is going to be any different to any other industry, and there will be job losses and things like that. And I think as part of that, the sort of going forwards, that remote working, that working across the country, working across offices, is going to become much bigger part of doing the work.
I think that's a very interesting point, Jamie, because construction gets knocked a lot, doesn't it, for its relatively poor improvements in productivity over the past 20, 30, 40 years, perhaps. But what people forget is it's also, the way it's structured at least, it's able to deal very effectively with vast changes in workload or demand.
Yeah.
Without putting, you can shed a lot of workers without putting people on the dole. Yeah. Because of particularly people who work on sites, they're used to moving about, aren't they? Now, of course, the very interesting point you brought up is that people in offices now, they don't have to physically move, do they? They just need to have someone from another office on the Zoom call or the Teams call, rather than someone in their own office, because they're both remote. It's just a degree of remoteness, and it doesn't make any difference if you're looking into a laptop, does it?
No. I think it's still important to make sure that there is a sense of belonging, so they're not just an individual floating around in a big sea of talent. They are part of an office. So that's why we continue with our Friday calls, because there's a sense of belonging and being part of that team, part of that business. And I think it is still important to do that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I think the technological advances that we've had have taken a quantum leap through this period. I always reflect that when I started in the industry back in '97, where you were operating on faxes and physical drawings and things like that being shared, there was always a case of getting a call from an architect or a contractor. Or I sent you this query. I sent it you by fax. Have you got it yet? And you're like, I've not seen it. I'll go and check our receptions to see if the fax has come in. And then if you want to delay it a bit, not here, can you resend it? And then the response period.
Jamie, you didn't play tricks like that, did you?
No, I'm just saying it happened. I've seen it happen.
But look, nowadays you can go to spam, can't it? I mean,
Yeah. That's right. Oh, it's junk. It's still. Oh, yeah. I forgot to check my junk. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that sort of thing happened, and the response to queries and things like that was in days, if hours or days. It wasn't like, I'll send you an email. Have you looked at it? Literally, it's just arrived. Seconds later, why have you not sent the response back? The speed of response and collaboration has increased massively over that sort of period that I've been involved. But I think this is just taking it to another level.
The interesting point of view is that a lot of the technology was there. It existed, but it required people to change their behaviours, change their attitude towards it. And all of a sudden, we found ourselves in a situation where we needed it because of the restrictions, and we needed to continue working. And all of a sudden, the adoption of it has gone through the roof. It's amazing that actually you can have a lot of tools to allow these different ways of working, but actually it's down to the human behaviour. Yeah. And if you don't have that, if you don't have the willingness to try it and the trust in people to use it properly and to still deliver what they need to, if you don't have that, things get stuck sometimes. But it's certainly fast tracked us through the last 6 months, hasn't it?
Yeah. No, you're right. It's the trust and the acceptance of it. And you're right. We use a lot of the chat function through our email system, sort of the instant messaging type chat thing. And I remember when I started in '97, where I was given I was lucky to be given a tiny little Mac of my own, and we had within the company that I was in at the time, Happold, we had an instant messaging system then, and all the youngsters were on it and like messaging each other quietly between doing some work every now and then. And it was used a lot, but none of it wasn't used as a business tool, and it wasn't used by the business, and it was potentially if that had kicked off then, it could have been a lot further advanced. But I think it is just a case where the situation we're in has forced a number of things to be accepted, and you can't work unless you use it, and now people have used it, and it's a way of working. It's interesting. I sent a survey around to my team just to see how people were getting on with working in this environment and how they felt about it. And I think pre this situation, no one would have wanted to work from home. Everyone liked being in the office. Working from home wasn't really considered an option, really. But the survey I sent round was a fairly simple survey monkey. Mostly it was a standard questionnaire, but it was things like, how have you found this? Have you found yourself more effective, less effective? And particularly, would you consider working like this in the future? And do you feel a bit more positive about it? And every single one of my team came back and said they felt much more positive about it. They actually felt that they were more effective working from home. There wasn't a single person that said they were less effective working from home. But the biggest drawback was that human interaction, that person-to-person interaction. And that's where we've got to now develop that a bit more, because we're stuck in this situation for at least another 6 months, aren't we? And we've got to make sure that people's mental health and the way that they're working and interacting with people stays well, stays good. And I think it's once we get out of this, hopefully in 6 months' time, I think there will be more acceptance to more sort of agile working from home and things like that. And that it's going to change the office environment. It's going to change the office demands. But it's I hate to say it's the new norm, but it is a, God, I hate that phrase, but it is something that we'll be used to. It will be a standard practice.
I think you're right. I think the offices need to be rethought about what they're for.
Yep.
And obviously the way that they're configured is likely to change, I think. I know we spent a fortune on fitting out our office. Everyone's got a lovely desk, and you know, there's small little breakout areas. But of course, you know, what we need after the lockdown, who knows? Don't know yet.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot more focus on. We're thinking about replanning our office, and I think there's going to be a lot more focus on being able to work more agile, so you don't have to be in the office all the week, but those spaces that are in the office are more allocated to that human interaction, that sharing space, that the breakout spaces, and I think that's going to be a key part of it. So you might have a slightly smaller workstation. Actually, that's the one thing which I've really enjoyed about this. So, and in our office, we've got various generations of engineers, from those that are retiring to those that are new, and there's always been a lot of paper, an awful lot of paper over desks. And as part of our sort of clean up of the office, we made everyone either get rid of their paper or file it or do something with it, so we can't have it on the desk. People actually finally went and did it because they had to, and now we've got completely paperless desks, and it's amazing. It's amazing to go in the office and just see all these desks, all clean desks. But that's something that's going to go forward. But I think it's just proving that we don't need all that paper, but they also don't need as big a desk. So we've got the big kind of L-shaped desks, and there's always been a kind of looking down on the people. Our London office quickly converted to the smaller rectangular desk because of, you know, price of desk space in London is a lot higher than we have it in Bristol. But you know, I don't think there's going to be any regrets in going to that smaller desk space and compacting that working desk area and then creating more breakout space. And I think that's what's going to be quite important.
Yeah, that's what I sense will happen. There'll be more areas for collaboration. Yeah. And little pods with multiple screens so you can be immersed in it. Yes,
yeah. Quite a few. I think there's going to be a need for not just one meeting room, but multiple small meeting rooms, like you say, with a couple of screens, so that you can do Zoom calls even if you're in the office. So I think that's one of the problems is when you start getting teams back in the office and people at home, you can't do the Zoom call necessarily because it's just people in the office.
But the whole idea of home office also will be thought through, right? Everyone will now want a proper home office, as compared to a makeshift desk or something of that sort. So there is going to be changes not just in the office, but also in the way houses or homes are being designed or fitted out. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean the people selling posh garden sheds have done really well during lockdown, haven't they? For exactly that reason.
Yeah. No, I think it is, and you know, we do a lot of work in the residential area, and a lot of it is still on the same sort of templates of houses and flat types. But I think it does need to shift, you know. And there's a lot of a demand going to be needed on spaces that have a bit of outdoor space as well, because you know, part of the bigger problem has been people just being trapped in the home and not being able to have, you know, other than opening a window, not having outdoor space. So, you know, things like balconies, larger balcony areas and things like that will start to be more common on buildings, I suspect. And then because you know, there's the hope that this is the only time that we're ever going to do this, but it seems, you know, watching all the David Attenborough stuff and all those sorts of things, it seems unlikely that this is going to be the last of these types of things.
Yeah, well, without getting too much into epidemiology, and of course, there's been lots of these sorts of epidemics over the last 100 years. We've been lucky that they haven't affected us. They haven't been quite as broad brush as COVID-19 has been, but they have been there.
Yeah.
Including, I read there was an outbreak of bubonic plague in Dundee. You know, not in the 17th century, but much more recently than that. But anyway, on that happy note, Jamie, we've talked an awful lot about remote working and how you run a sort of engineering design practice remotely. There was all sorts of other topics we were going to talk about, including heritage issues, and maybe just let's riff a few minutes. You wrote a blog about altruism in engineering.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit of a conceptual shift, but just give us a couple of minutes on your thoughts on altruism and how it affects engineering.
Well, I suppose the way that I come at it or think about it is that engineering isn't the most well-paid career. So it's not like the work. You know, a lot of people that I was at university with went into the city and were earning mega bucks and things like that. And it's, you know, the people that went into engineering, it was always kind of like, oh, you're not going to be as well paid as we are. So it's not massively well paid, but obviously it's a lot better than any other careers. But I don't find myself with masses of money that I can give away to charitable causes and things like that. But what I do have is a lot of time and experience. And you know, I've been lucky in my career to go into areas of management quite quickly and onto sitting on management boards and things like that. And that is something that I can bring my experience into another arena, and help and support other causes. And there was a guy that I know quite well who introduced me to the term enlightened self-interest, where it's about doing something that is not in your normal thing, that doesn't really necessarily bring you anything other than perhaps, you know, training yourself and generating something for the future. And it's something that I've always felt quite passionate about, and I've given talks at Constructing Excellence about it as well. So I've always done something outside of work. I've always been involved in something outside of work, and since in the last sort of 15 or so years, that's been everything from being involved with the FBE, the Forum for the Built Environment, which is a networking organisation which is pretty big in Bristol. It's a big organisation in Bristol, lots of members and lots of big events. So I've been involved in that, and I set up a young person's thing, and that was as much to as I was going out to events that, you know, Bristol Young Professional events, where they were meeting people and learning how to network and things like that. And I felt that the construction industry needed something similar, so we set up Forum for Tomorrow, which is the young version of that, and that was as much about networking for my own benefit, but bringing other people together to improve those relationships. But obviously, also at the time, it was about me getting out and about and going out and having some drinks with friends and meeting new friends. And then I got involved in Constructing Excellence, and that for me was important. This was FBE covered my business development side of things. Constructing Excellence was about improving my knowledge, improving my background and understanding, but also helping others and spreading the knowledge and the awareness of best practice of various different approaches about doing things. And so got heavily involved in that as well. And then through that and going to Sustainable Business Breakfast, I got involved with another couple of groups. One, it was a community interest company called Bristol Green Doors, and it was our work was to promote the idea of renovating existing buildings to improve the energy performance of the buildings. And again, I got absolutely nothing out of it. You know, it wasn't paid for it, but it was a lot of work. I was the finance director. We were a board, and we ran at least annual events to where houses that had some work done to improve the energy performance, as we have on our house, open their doors to demonstrate those technologies and the improvements and things, and try and spread the message. And that was great, and it was good to be involved. And then I got involved with a community business called Ambition Lawrence Weston. So Lawrence Weston is an area to the west of Bristol city centre, out towards the docks. It's an area that's been deprived. It's an area of sort of post-war housing, largely post-war housing. And a friend of mine had set up and helped the local community set up a group to try and promote Lawrence Weston and improve things there. And they were looking for people outside of the area with business experience to get involved and to help them help steer them. And it was about steering them through meetings, but help steering them particularly through the chance to improve the area and bring development into the area, improve the benefits to the area. And yeah, so I've been involved with them now for 8 years, and that's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, there's such a great group of people working in a brilliant area, and we've done all sorts of things. They won national lottery funding, like £1 million national lottery funding, which is spent over 10 years, and then is supposed to be generating a legacy. We're looking at developing a small community-led block of 40 homes that they can lend out, they can sell, or they can keep in perpetuity, and as low rent and low values, affordable homes. And then we're looking at a community hub now as well, so building a community hub. And this is there's no money in the area. This is all about getting funding. It's all about getting money in from other areas, getting things like that. And it's my experience, I hope my experience has really helped them, and I've just really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed their company, I've enjoyed doing the work, and there's nothing else out of it. But there were so many groups like that, particularly around the UK and internationally, that all they're after is a bit of our time. And if we can give a bit of our time, why shouldn't we give a bit of our time? We've got so much time, rather than sitting at home looking at Instagram or whatever, spend an hour reading and writing a report or doing some finance for them or things like that. And it's not like getting out and painting sheds. It's actually physically, it's actually doing stuff that we do on a daily basis, but for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've got. We've got time.
Well, Jamie, that's great, and thank you very much for being on our podcast today, which has covered quite a broad range of subjects, hasn't it? From remote working via Zoom to philosophical discussions about altruism and some of the sort of extracurricular voluntary work you've been doing, which is very interesting. And I think we picked up on some very interesting stuff around the adoption of these remote working technologies. And just to pick up on your point, if we were doing this 6 months ago, we'd have dragged you into our office in London, we'd have had a camera up there in our office, and the whole thing would have taken you about 3/4 of a day.
Yeah.
Whereas this takes a few minutes longer than the actual length of the podcast. So some interesting stuff in today's podcast. So to all our listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Construction Big Breakfast. Join us next time for another episode, which will be launched in 2 weeks' time approximately. So thank you and goodbye. Right, thanks everyone.
All right. Come to Inventt for the highest R&D tax credit you can claim. We help construction businesses get back millions in tax credits every year. Contact us today for a free review. Thanks for joining us this week on the Construction Big Breakfast. Make sure to visit our website, www.inventt.com, where you can subscribe to the Construction Big Breakfast on all platforms so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a positive rating. Or if you'd simply share it with a friend, that would help us out too. Be sure to tune in for our next episode.